is that these chaps, which are the voltigeurs of the reserve of the guard under good old Ney, is Ney. They an unusual thing about them is that several of the units. Who is it? Only one of them. Yeah, I think it's Lacoste right there. His unit has a strength of 5 strength points under Volley and Bayonet, so it can take it takes 5 hits to destroy it. Sorry, four hits to destroy it. All the others are 3, which is quite small for a unit in or is lower than usual than in this sort of style of Napoleonic Volley and Bayonet battle. Right, so therefore it's worth remembering that, because that means that if we can rack up some hits on them, we might be able to eliminate some of them. Okay, wouldn't that be jolly from the Russian point of view? Okay, and then in terms of what comes up next, there are actually no morale tests because no one is within close range and arc of the enemy. These have deliberately positioned themselves outside the vision of the artillery there. So there will be no morale test. Nobody is in melee, as we can see. And then there will be one case of shooting, only one case of shooting, which is the plucky Jaegers down here, which advanced on the cavalry. And so they're going to get one shot, they're going to get one die. They're looking for a 6. And of course, the cavalry will be able to use saving throws. They certainly can. Let's try and do all this with one hand. There we go. Okay. So we'll roll that up and see how they did. They're looking for a 6. And they don't get it. Okay, so that means that's the end of the end of the Allied, Russian, that sort of thing, turn. And now we go on to the French turn. So this will be upcoming let me just check that again. This will be French turn 7, which is 9 p.m. So the French have got 4 turns left. And of course, actually, while we're on the subject, right, okay, they got 4 turns left. So of course, what they're trying to do to at least get a tactical, the lowest form victory out of this, is they've got to cut the line of communication. Because if we look at it and we say, well, what are the chances of them taking the town and the chateau? Looks pretty grim from here, I'd have to say. I mean, there's basically a sort of a Western Front mentality, Western Front in World War One mentality going on up there. They're just sort of like, no, we're standing here, we're very well defended, and yeah, we're standing here too, and we can't even actually see each other to shoot at one another because it's too far away at this time of night. So presumably there isn't even a shaving of a moon. Could probably look that up, I suppose, find out what state the moon was in that night. But anyway, yes, so, I mean, the French could say, well, we're throwing caution to the wind and we're going to try and assault, but it would certainly be against the odds. So their main thrust, their main hope is that they can do something about the line and cut off the line of communication. But to do that, they've got 4 turns left. And I mean, if you take sort of, the nearest French unit, I suppose we could consider those chaps there, for example. I mean, the line of communication is this road. Okay. So, I mean, does that literally mean that if that unit was sitting on that road, of course, I'm going to adjudicate it has to be the line of communication is cut off at the end of the battle, is assessed at the end of the battle whether the line of communication has been cut off. Not that, because there's nothing in the scenario that says once they cut the line of communication, the battle stops. That's not the point. So somebody would have to get down here, and that is a point, isn't it? Because I don't think there's anything in the scenario that actually says they have to cut their line of communication. But where do they have to be on the road? So, I mean, if you had like one French unit there, imagine if you had one French unit there and then like a Russian corps here, So, I'm having this awful idea. Oh dear. Yeah, because in what was it in I think in the what is it, Road to Glory Quatre Bras scenario, the one I played on this table, and you'll see elsewhere on the channel. Cutting the line of communication, at least as I think it was explicitly specified in that scenario, and it would to sort of use the same sort of mechanism in here, it would have meant that the French would have had to have got to that point there, which is a very different thing for them getting just somewhere on the road, as I've been saying throughout this thing. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to look into that and see if I can, because I think in the main body of the rules, there's certainly, pretty sure that in the main body of the rules, there's nothing sort of like cutting off a line of communication and what that means under these rules. No, it's more of a, scenario by scenario thing. So I'm going to look at what they say about that in Quatre Bras, and we'll see what we think. Okay, here's my adjudication on that whole line of communication thing. In the Quatre Bras scenario, for example, to translate its description into the terms of this game, it would have said that the Allied line of communication, as we might imagine, is the road to Dionville. Okay, now, and it says that to cut the line of communication, the road has to be held by a certain army, the enemy, the enemy army. Well, I'm not taking that to mean that the road has to be completely clear of Russian forces, let's say, because I mean, if you had sort of like one Russian skirmisher there and then sort of a French corps deployed along here, I think they pretty well cut the line of communication there. On the other hand, if the French have, let's say they have one brigade of infantry there, the whole thing is before the town, south of the town. So they got one brigade of infantry there sitting on the road. I'm going to adjudicate that's all they need to do. All they've got to do is get, I suppose we could split hairs and we could sort of say, can they block the line of communication if they have a single horse artillery unit on it, limbered? Let's go as sort of weak as we can, or a detached skirmisher, detached infantry skirmisher. So I think it would be nice if it was, a brigade perhaps, but they've got to have something on the road, and we'll see how they do. Right, so now it's on to the French turn. Okay, it's the end of French movement, 9 p.m., 7th French turn, and given that they have 3 turns left to try to cut that much discussed Allied line of communication, it looks like, looks like Ney's troops down here, which are this corps, these 4 brigades, of course. They're slugging it out, but of course these are just skirmishers, so they might very rapidly disappear like snow at Easter. Anyway, what have the French done? Well, we can see we've got the fire dice on nobody's in melee. Of course, it's nighttime, so you can't charge into contact with somebody you haven't seen at the beginning of your turn, as we've firmly established in this film. So they've inched forward. They've got in within shooting range, but not within 100 yards. Not allowed because of the zone of control of each base. And what else have we got? That's right, the introduction of a new type of die. So I've decided to put the dice down because in this particular case we have a lot of situations where we have to test for morale before we go to the actual combat itself. So we can see that, let's see, go down the line. These chaps pulled back slightly to get out of range of the jolly old Jaegers. Don't like having pot shots taking at them. These chaps, I believe, what did they do? They unlimbered. They moved forward slightly, unlimbered, and they are now ready to fire on these chaps here. Of course, these chaps are stationary, so they're going to be using 2 dice. They're only using 1. The French move forward here using a inclined movement slightly to the right. Got within musket range and stopped, so they're ready to blast away at the skirmishers here. They weren't able to just sort of glide through them the way you do like to move through skirmishers, because to do that, of course, they would have had to have charged them, which they couldn't do in their turn because they were too far away from the skirmishers to do that. So they could charge them on the next turn if the skirmishers stay where they are, which of course I'm sure they won't. Right, so they moved forward. Then the 4th Brigade that was up here pushed forward. They actually had to go up this way and then turn and then go that way because they had the skirmishers in front of them with their zone of control. So they had to go up there to get past that, and that's why they've only moved a short distance. They pushed down here, and they're just sort of heading in that general direction whilst cleverly keeping themselves out of the range of the Russian artillery here. Okay. Then this artillery battalion here turned itself squarely to fire on the jolly old Cossacks there. Let's see. Then we've got over here in the troops that came on with the Emperor earlier on. So we've got, so that is, what is that? I think that's Victor's Corps. Yeah, we've got... who is that? Duhem. Yeah, this chappy here with his division, these two. Tried to get them into a position whereby they could both have attacked. So they could have marched up here and attacked them in the flank. They could have marched up here and got in position to shoot. There wasn't enough space, basically. So they're lagging back. I suppose one might say, yeah, they're attacking in on echelon, as it were. But anyway, they're in front, and they're going to get it right on the face from the Russian artillery here. So, you know, fingers crossed on that one. Best of luck, chaps. And then those chaps here, as I say, they're holding back, so they're not engaged with anyone at the moment. Yes. Oh, that's right. And then an interesting development. There's finally some combat going on at the town itself of Brienne Jan. The town itself here, because the 3rd Guard Cavalry horse artillery has wheeled itself up to the outside of the town there, and is going to start blasting away. And of course, when artillery fires on a town, you do roll, and you roll once. Yeah, you roll once, and if you roll a 6, the town has caught fire, and the occupants must evacuate it. And then you roll subsequent turns to see if the fire goes out. Right, and no one can go into the town while it's on fire. So we shall see. Right, so let's get cracking, I suppose, and do the morale tests. Okay, so it doesn't. We got to do all the morale tests first. It doesn't make any difference in which order we do these. So remember, just try to remember that it's night time. So that means that everyone is -1 on their morale. Okay, these are testing because they're within close range of one another. So we'll test the Russians here first. So they now have based on nighttime, their adjusted morale is 4, and they're okay. If they exceed it, they fail. All right, so that's that one taken care of. And then we go for the French artillery there. And let's see, they're going to be in the same situation, adjusted morale of 4, and they have failed their morale test. Right, okay, so we'll mark those. Right, good result for the Russians there. So there they are, they're disordered. That's the result, of course, of failing a morale test. And now we have the Cossacks here. Now they have a morale of, oh, good Lord, they're going to be in a lot of trouble, aren't they? Yes, because they're going to be fired on from the flank. Yep, and it's nighttime, and they have a morale of 4. So their morale is down to 2. Okay. Not surprisingly, they failed it, so they are disordered. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's try and keep the camera pointing somewhere useful. There we go. Grab one of those. Right, so they are in very, yes, timorous state. Yes, timorous they are. Okay, let's see, what else have we got? Okay, over here, the French are within the close range of the enemy's guns there. So let's see what they got up to. Their morale is 5, -1 for the night time, but they've got a 4, so they've passed that. They're not being shot at in the flank. And then we've got we got the town itself. Let's see. I wonder if there's a special rule for the town here being in the close range of the enemy guns. Well, I'll roll it up. I mean, if they pass it anyway, yeah, they would have passed it anyway. The morale, yeah, they may even have a morale modifier for being in the town. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to breeze on and say we'll look at it later on. But whatever would have happened, they would have passed. So, okay, and so now we go on to the actual combat. Okay. The artillery get a saving throw if they're unlimbered artillery fired on by artillery which is not heavy. Neither one of those is heavy. They will also, you can have multiple saving throws. They will also get an extra saving throw because they're being fired on by a disordered unit. So let's do the Russians first. Let's do the French fire, first. So they'll fire their 1, hitting on a 4, 5, or a 6. Okay, they've got 1 hit. So now they get 2 saving throws to get rid of that hit. So they're looking for 4, 5, or a 6. There you go. They got it on the first one. Okay, so they did no damage to them. They are now going to fire at them. They've got 2 dice because they're stationary and they're at close range. So they're hitting their artillery at close range. They're hitting on a 4, 5, or a 6. They will get saving throws, right? And there's 1 hit there. So the French, roll to see if they can save that one. And they failed. So they have taken a hit. Now, there would have been a possibility of the Cossacks here, the light cavalry, the skirmishing cavalry who are going to get shot at by the guard here. Possibility for them to have 2 lots of saving throws, but they don't get that. They don't get it. They get it saving throws because they're cavalry, and they can, for every saving throw that they take, they can retire 600 yards, as established before, as we've discussed before. But they don't get the saving throw for skirmishers, because for skirmishers to get that, they have to be 1 base width apart, and they're clearly nowhere near that. They're sort of massed in a way. So they're going to get one type of saving rolls. So we're going to fire on them. They've got battalion guns, which is why normally infantry that is not stationary would have 2 dice, but they got battalion guns, so they got 3. So they will be firing at them. And there's a 6 there, which is a hit. And let's see if they can save, which they did. Okay, so there's no damage done there to the hussars. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. That was a saving throw, though, so they have to retire 600 yards. It's an option whether they take the saving throw, but they will always try to do it because if they don't take it, they're hit, and they're only one strength point, so they would be eliminated. So we need to retire them 600 yards. All right, next up, these chaps firing at the hussars there. Let's see what they can do. They're looking for 6s for hits. And they've got nothing there. Okay, so desultory fire. I'm rearranging the... Don't want to do that. I'm rearranging the Jaegers down here. No, don't want to do that. Okay. Okay, these chaps here firing on the Cossacks. Okay, let's see what they can do. Looking for 6s. There's a 6 there. Okay, can the Cossacks save and retire 600 yards? No, they didn't. They are indeed destroyed, sent to the cavalry parade ground in the sky. Right, so there we go. That's the end of the Cossacks of the Lukovsin. And we have to roll to see if that occasioned a division collapse. It was one hit on the division, and the answer to that is no. They would be firing at them, but they're not there, so we can skip that. Okay. Moving on. What do we got left? Right. Now this is rather a crucial one up here, isn't it? Of course. So let's see. Let's have the French artillery hitting on a 4-5 or a 6. Sorry, the Russian artillery hitting on a 4-5 or a 6 against the French. And oh dear. 2 hits. No saving throws here. No, we're not in saving throw territory. No, that's canister for you. Right. Okay, let's do 2 hits. Oh, well, actually, let's see how many hits we get in total, obviously. Let's do that. There's 2 hits on the brigade of, what is it? I think it's something like Menier of Duhem's division. Those chaps there. Okay, 2 hits on them. And then we got this coming in from here. Now, there are going to be saving throws against all these, if any of them are hits, because it's a disordered brigade. And they're looking for 6s. They've got nothing there. Okay. And then the French, of course, are firing, and they're going to be firing at the infantry. Let's see what they can do. Oops. Well, they've got a 6, so there's 1 hit there on the infantry. Okay, so there's the hit there on Blagovenzenko. There are already 2 hits here on this brigade, Freudenreich. So that means that the division in total has got 3 hits on it. 1 more hit and it becomes exhausted. So 1 hit away from exhaustion, which is to say, where are we? This chap here, yeah. Who is he? Bernodosov. Yeah, 18th Division, those 2. Sorry, get my hand in the way here. There we go. Right. Okay, well, plinking away, they got 1 hit, but they got 2 hits on them. So let's sort that out. Right. Well, 2 hits there. It's actually Mater is the brigade commander. So there's 2 hits there. There's 1 hit there, and it's Duhem, his division. As we might imagine, 1 more hit and they will be exhausted. So if they're exhausted, they're not going to be any use for... is that true? No, if they're exhausted, they can't charge the enemy. They can still move forward. They can move towards the enemy. It's only when you're out of command that you can't move towards the enemy. So they could still inch their way forward to try and get to the road. But... they'd be doing it, so they wouldn't be doing it very effectively if they're exhausted and not able to charge people. They can still shoot at people, but they can't charge them. So, there's still some hope there for the Russians, obviously. Right, so that was we've done that now, haven't we? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Wait a minute. Did I got to rewind. I can't remember. I know they took the canister. I said, oh, the canister. I can't remember if they fired, if that's why those 2 dice are there, or if I put those there as hit dice to remind me. So I'm just going to do a quick rewind. I apologize. Right, yeah. As you probably know, yeah, they fired at them and they fired at them. Everything is in order. No problem. So finally down here, we've got the fire coming in from the... French artillery down there. I haven't done a lot of firing at towns, so I'm going to have to look up the factors. But let's see. It's close range, so it's 4, 5, or a 6, but not, so just 1 die, okay. They missed anyway, so I'll look up the town stuff some other time. Right. So that is, come to think of it, that is the end of the French, that's the end of the French turn. Okay, so well, let's have a think. What do we think? Well, yeah, they're getting very close. Let's use the old pointer. They're getting very close to the road, the line of communication, but they're on their last legs, basically. Well, I mean, they're not being destroyed, but 1 more hit and they become an exhausted division, which means they can't charge the enemy. Okay. Let's see. So if the enemy just sort of stands in the way, the only way they can get through them, I suppose, would be to march smartly up to them and try and demolish them with musketry. Yeah, tough. It's going to be tough. In the meantime, you've got the guard here, which, as you can see, because you've got the white casualty markers. Look at these; they're completely untouched. Well, they would be, of course. They've only been faced by cavalry, and the cavalry don't shoot at them. So they can carry on marching. It's just a question of wading through the enemy and getting up there. Getting into a position to actually reach the road. So yes, it's not over yet. So we'll press on. We'll have the Russian turn. Well, as a matter of fact, before we get to that Russian turn, let's talk about. Let's see, there it is. We got a different viewpoint this time, and other side of the table. And what we're going to talk about, using my favourite pointer, my pipe, is the town, you see. Yes, sharp-eyed observers will have noticed that I made a mistake. When the enemy... Ooh, it's too far away. Okay, let's use this thing. Right. When the enemy... Right here, fired at the town. When the French fired at the town, that's right, the French. And I said, I said something like, we might have to decide if the thing catches fire. But we didn't do that because they didn't score any hits. That's irrelevant. Every time an artillery unit fires at a wooden building, you have to roll just that once for that player turn to see if it catches fire on a 6. The town in this scenario, all the buildings that are on the tabletop in this scenario are wooden, apart from the chateau, which is of course underneath that lot. And let's pan out. This is too difficult to hold. Right, here we go. Right, thank you. And yes. So where was I? Right. So we should have rolled to see if the thing caught fire. So because the Russian hasn't moved or rolled any dice yet, I'm going to say it's still the French turn. And we're going to roll. Let's nip round there. Nip. Pop round the corner. There we go. Where I can carry on filming and reach for a die. And we'll roll to see if we get a 6. To see if the town catches on fire. Not today. Okay. Well, that's that settled. The other thing was, what was it? If it was a stone building, so a stone town in this sort of an instance, which it isn't, then there would have been no concept of, they're within close range, they have to test morale or that sort of thing, because all artillery fire, is it all artillery fire? Oh gosh, I think it is. I think it's all artillery fire. Is computed as if it were long range. So therefore, you can't have this in close range of the enemy. So that means that they wouldn't have to test for morale, and it would mean that the artillery would not be able to fire in the opponent's turn, which you are allowed to do, so-called counterattack, if you are within close range. So anyway, lessons learned there. But as I say, this is a wooden town. Just throwing that in for reference. That's a wooden town. So, right, we've dealt with all that. And now it's on to the Russian move. Here we are at the end of Allied Turn 7, which is 9 p.m, January 29, 1814. Okay, and so the Allies, let's see, what have they done? They have stayed where they are here, just firing stationary at the enemy artillery. Once again, the Jaegers have moved forward. This time they're going to take a pot at the artillery. The skirmishing hussars have formed themselves up. Now, there's only 2 of them this time, but that gives them the spacing there. There's a spacing there of 1 base width. So that unit is going to get a set of saving rolls because of that, in addition to being cavalry. They, unfortunately, are not going to get that because they would have to have between them and on their flanks the nearest friendly unit, which is this unit here, which is far too close for that. So they're not going to get that second batch of saving rolls. The Cossacks have just sort of moved over in this direction. I almost made a mistake, or rather, the Russian commander almost made a mistake in telling them to charge them in the flank, which would have been, you know, interesting. But of course, they can't see them. So that was cancelled. And they're just sort of generally making themselves useful. Of course, the problem, if they had gone over there anyway, would have been that they would have been too far away from their commander to be in command the next turn, which would have been bad. Okay, let's see, what else? These chaps decided to take a different tack and gave up their stationary status and have moved themselves over this way, and they're taking absolutely... No, they're not, are they? They're too far away. That's right, they've held back. They're getting ready to fire at them. Because if they were over here, they could have easily waltzed past them over in this direction. So they've moved themselves towards them, but not within musket range, because it thought that that was a bad bargain. They would have been able to shoot with 1 die. They would have been able to fire back with 3 dice. So it was decided that was a bad bargain. So they're just getting ready for the French to come their way. They've moved in slightly, moved forward. They've stayed put. They've spun around, given up stationary status so that they can take a pot at these chaps over here. Let's see, there's been no movement anywhere up there, okay? So now, yeah, the goal that's going on over here is that these two have just been left in situ, as it were, and the idea is to try to achieve something close to, I think that particular brigade there is a smaller brigade. I think it's only 3 hits will destroy it. So if they can get another one, there's that there. And then also we've got, because they are within close range, which is allowed because this is a wooden town, not a stone town, so therefore close range does count. That means that these chaps are within close range of the enemy. That means they have to take a morale test. It also means that even though it's the Russian turn, the French, the counterattack principle, the French, any enemy units within close range get to fire as long as they're within shooting arc. And so they can indeed fire on the town. So if you think about it, I mean, statistically, obviously, if it's a wooden structure, then it means that, you know, if it's fired at 6 times, it's odds on that it's going to catch fire. So if you've got somebody parked up in close range, then those 6 die rolls could happen quite quickly. That would mean then that if it caught fire, it means that the Russians have to leave and nobody can re-enter the town until the fire goes out. So it could be that at the conclusion of the battle, one possibility would be the town was actually unoccupied. How about that? Right. So anyway, let's roll up. Let's roll up, and let's see what we can get going here. So all right. So we're going to test the morale of the Russian artillery, which is morale of 5, but it's 4 because it's nighttime. And they're fine, they didn't exceed that, okay? And then we have the French, okay, who failed their morale check last time, and they are, of course, disordered. So they've got a -1 for nighttime, and they've got a -1 for disorder. So that means they are rolling on a 3. And look at that, they failed. So is that the first time? No, it's only the second time, I think, in the battle that we've seen a unit rout, because that's what's going to happen there. And there we are. When you rout, you lose a strength point. They'd already lost 1, they lost another one, and that's it for that artillery unit. It's gone. Okay? Right, now they were core troops, so they don't have any effect on exhaustion. Right, so now we move on to the rest of our morale tests. Okay, what do we got up here? We have, who is that? Voirol, right. And so he's rolling up. He's got a morale of 5. He's not being fired at in the flank, nothing else, just nighttime. So his morale becomes 4 because of nighttime. And let's roll him up. Let's get it up. Here we go. And see what happens to Voirol. Do they hold their nerve? 4. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay. Anything higher than 4 would have lost it. And then up here we have, who is it? Mater. And let's see, he is not being fired in the flank. So he's just got nighttime as a factor. Yep, that's right. So his morale is 4. Let's roll up for Mater. He's fine, didn't exceed his morale factor. And then the Russians in the town. Oh, let's see. I think there's isn't there a +1 for being in a building? Let me check that. Yeah, there we go. They actually get a +1 on their morale factor because they're in a building. So that means we can ignore the nighttime. They cancel each other out. So they've still got a morale of 5 then, those chaps there. And we're rolling up for them because they're within close range of the enemy. Here we go. So they are fine. Okay, they've held their nerve. And looking for white dice, they're all gone. So now we can get on to the fire dice. Okay, the Jaegers have decided instead to fire at the Guard cavalry. Let's do that. And they missed. Right, okay. And we've got firing at Voirol. We have the let's see, 18th Division Artillery with its 2 dice. Because, no, they're not firing 2 dice. No, naughty. They're firing 1 die because they're not stationary. But they are hitting on a 4, 5, or 6 because they're at close range. Let's see what they can do to Voirol. And they missed. Right, not so much. Okay, let's see what the French here can do shooting. So they can't fire at the artillery. It's a blocked fire lane, but they can. Oh, that's right. Note, they can't fire at the artillery because the fire lane is blocked because they're in the way, as you can see if you trace from the corner there. Okay, but they can fire at them, no problem. So they've got 2 dice because they are not stationary and they're firing. Okay, they're not disordered. So they got 2 dice firing at, let's see, his label's a bit, I think he's something like Bagovanzenko, I think that's this brigade right here, which has currently got 1 hit. And they missed. There's a lot of missing going on here. Oh, we haven't had 1 hit yet, have we? No, never mind saving throws. Okay. So then Bagovanzenko is going to fire at Mater. So he's got 2 dice, but these both get saving throws because the firers are disordered. All right, they got 1 hit. So let's see if the French can save against that disordered shot. No, they missed. Ooh, so that one goes in. So that's a hit on Mater, and I think that eliminates them. And there we see, that's what's left of Mater's brigade. And that now means that the division, Mater's division, the division to which Mater belonged, which is old Douem here, and we can see from the smoke, is now an exhausted division. Okay, and there's only going to be 1 hit on them, so we can roll up right now and see if they suffer division collapse, which will only happen if I roll a 1 at this point, which didn't happen. Okay, all right. So plucky Russians there holding their ground, helped having the artillery, of course, right in front of them. Bit of a tall order for the French to get through that. Yes, the Russians doing the what is it? The yes, the oh, I know there's a name for it. The Borodino spirit or something like that. Yes, to the guns, the Russian artillery. Ooh, yes, better watch out. Anyway, so then we have the 3rd Guard Cavalry's artillery battalion over there is going to fire 1 die, but hitting on a 4, 5, or a 6. I can't remember if they get some sort of species of saving throw. You'd think so if they're in a building, but anyway, let's roll up first to see what happens. Now, keep in mind this is not the die that determines whether or not that building catches on fire. Right, so they did get a hit, 4, 5, or a 6. So there's a hit there. Let's look this up. Okay, yeah, as near as I can see, there are no saving throws for being in a building. So I suppose, being in any kind of building as far as I can see. So, yeah, there are advantages for being in the town in the sense that a town, there is no, what is it? There's no small arms fire against it. It can only be artillery. So if infantry want to get in there, they have to melee it. They have to get right up against the wall, as it were. Anyway, doing the best I can. I can't see any saving throws. So they were hit with the 4 that was rolled by the French. And you do roll. You don't use that die. You definitely don't use that die. You roll for every attack that there is. Once at a player turn. So that's now. It's the French, of course, counter-attacking here, but you only do this once for the building. No matter how many times you fire at it in the turn, you roll to see if a 6 shows up, which it didn't. So therefore, it didn't catch fire. And if it does catch fire, then at the end of combat, whoever's in there has to retreat out of it disordered. So that would be interesting. For example, this is the Russian turn, but there could be, if there were French in there, they would have to retreat out of it disordered, even though it was the Russian turn. Now over here, oh, that's right. So there was 1 hit on them. So that means, who was it? Musin Pushkin, I think it is. And so they're part of, can't read his name from there. Who is he? Kornilov. Okay, they're part of Kornilov's division. And they have had 2 hits on them. 1 there, 1 there. Okay, so, you got to watch them. Right, and then we have these chaps over here who have nothing to fire at because they've been destroyed. Okay. Yes. So that means that's the end of... We've already taken into consideration division exhaustion and collapse. We've already looked at that. So I think we're at the end of the Russian turn, certainly. Which is turn 7, 9 p.m. So we see ourselves in a situation where the French attack that was developing, I mean, of course, there was that unit there, Mater's brigade of Duhem's division was here, which was, just a few hundred yards away from the actual road itself, technically speaking. They couldn't actually have squeezed through there because there was the town and the artillery in the way. There wasn't a sufficient gap there for them to just waltz through there. If the artillery hadn't been there, they might have been able to get through, but of course the artillery was there. Yes. So, of course, now this division is exhausted. So that means that it can't charge the enemy. It can still move forward up to as close as 100 yards from the enemy, but it cannot charge them. So all they can do is, well, they could march smartly forward and keep shooting at people. But the idea of them being able to sort of punch through here is looking a bit weak. Of course, these 2 Russian infantry units there are sort of on the verge of being in a bad way. Let's put it that way. They've already been knocked about a fair bit, and they're both permanently disordered. What else did we have? Of course, yes, we had the loss of the artillery over here, which was significant. Ney's forces still in mint condition, of course. But the clock is running down. Time is running out. We've got, the French have got, how many have they got? 3 more turns. Yeah, we've done turn 7. There are 10 turns. They've got 3 more turns. So in 3 turns, somebody would have to get up there and get onto the road. Yes, it's just sort of a lot of people to wade through, as it were. And of course, it's nighttime, which is not helping anything. Right, so off we go to the French turn. Well, all you sharp-eyed observers out there will no doubt have noted that Jeff was a bit confused. And where's my stick? There we go. Right, he was a bit confused there in adjudicating what happened with the French fire against the town, because indeed buildings do get a saving throw unless it's from heavy or siege artillery. The problem I had there, excuse me, was I was relying too heavily on the reference sheet I have from the web. I couldn't find it on there, and then I looked it up in the rulebook under buildings. and neglected to look it up under the saving throws section. So there was actually no reference to it, if I remember correctly, under buildings, but there is a reference under saving throws. Anyway, so they should have had, these chaps here, should have had a savings throw. Let's just get on with it and do it. There's their saving roll. Okay, so I'm going to remove that casualty, and then we can press on with a French move. Okay, French, 8th turn. It is 10 p.m. The date is January 29th, 1814, as we've all drilled into our heads so many times during the course of this battle. Anyway, moving on. What have the French done? Well, basically, they've made a grand tactical decision, and, finally, and they've decided to abandon their notion of winning the road. There we are, you see, to yes, a place whose name evades me. Yes, we'll get back to that. But yes, the line of communication, the Allied line of communication, the LOC, they've decided to abandon that, and instead they're probably coming to terms with the fact that they're probably not going to get much of a win out of this. So instead, they're basically sort of going into an attack everywhere mode. Not suicidal attacks, but some of them are a bit dodgy. And they're trying, because they can get a win if they can get a tactical win if they can exhaust every enemy division and collapse one of them. So it's not out of the question. It's going to be tough for them to do that, especially here probably, because let's see, they've taken no casualties there, but there is a bit of a weak link in the sense. Oh well, there's an opportunity at least in the sense of the divisional artillery there, and if. So that's, what is it, Division 7. So that's why the field artillery here is finally unlimbered. And it's at a disadvantage. They're stationary and they're not. But, soon enough they'll be stationary as well if they're still there. Let's have a crack at them and see if we can get some casualties on board. Beyond that, so let's moving through the line. We've had a bit of shuffling on the part of the Polish Guard Lancers down here. What they've done is basically moved into that position to hopefully block attempts by these chaps to sort of fire into the flank of the Guard Voltigeurs here. These three units of Guard Voltigeurs have basically positioned themselves to shoot the blazes out of the Hussars, who of course get saving throws. Yes. Well, at least they'll get 2 sets of saving throws and they'll get 1 set. But, the idea is to try and wear down this division. Okay. Then let's see, what else have we got? And 2 units here are firing at them. So at least that's something there. A bit of a punch. Here, the artillery, I think, was facing the other way and it swung around to fire at that artillery. So that, and I haven't got any fire dice there. I haven't done all my fire dice. I certainly haven't, right? I'll have to get back to that. Because that belongs to a division, so that's more casualties that can be caused there. These are pitching in and doing the same thing, having a go at that artillery. Okay. As you can see with the white dice, there are plenty of morale tests taking place for being within close range of the enemy's artillery. Then these brave chaps here, Voirol, they can't charge people, but they can shoot at people, so they've marched smartly up here to try and shoot the blazes out of this lot. Okay, we shall see. These plucky chaps here are staying in position and firing on the enemy, and who knows, they might set the town on fire. Interesting development here, though, because the penny finally dropped, that troops in a town are allowed to fire a quarter of their firepower out of the town and round it up. So their firepower would normally be 4 because they're stationary, but they've got dedicated guns, so it's 5. And what you do is you divide that by 4 and then you round up. So that gives them 2. So they can fire 2 out of this side and Just 1 second.